We're looking at a family history book I put together for all of the children several years ago with a coat of arms on the front and then another copy of the coat of arms on the inside. And we start in Ireland in the Ballaby and Monaghan County.
That's Northern Ireland, right?
No, it is just across the line into Southern Ireland, but it was a Protestant area, oddly enough. Okay. And there are pictures of a very humble dwelling and David McMurray's birthplace, who was my great-great-grandfather. Following that is a picture of John G. McMurray and his family, my great-grandfather, a very large family, and my brother and his my grandfather was a twin, Leslie and Lindley McMurray. And then
Where were they born?
Pardon?
Where were they born?
They were born in New York State, in Troy, New York, which is right across the river from the capital. And there is a commentary which explains the picture and who the people are. Family history tree right behind that. And then the people, beginning with the people that I remember. My father's parents, his father was dead before I was born, but his mother lived until 1936, and she was a very, very stunning older woman. She's dressed in her Chicago finery here, which was very impressive. John G. bought military warrants from soldiers in New England. New England soldiers were paid with land warrants in the West quite often, and John G. bought a lot of those, and he had over 2,000 acres of land in Iowa at one time.
Before he even got here?
Yeah, and he never had been here. John G. never was here, but he sent his son out to look at the land to see if there was any coal on it or if there was anything that might have been worthwhile. He didn't know what in the world he was going to do with all that land. And among other things, John, my grandfather, and his brother planted the row of elm trees that led into Eagle Grove, which you're too young to remember, but that was a very impressive group of trees from the south side going in. L.A. McMurray had one particular thing for which made him famous in the city, and that was his Sunday school class in the Congregational Church. He averaged over 100 people a week in his Sunday school class, and here's a picture of them all with L.A. sitting in the front row in the left-hand side here. And that class was very well known, as was he as a teacher.
Male and female?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We're getting into pictures of my father's house where he grew up, my grandparents on Wilson Avenue. A beautiful, big, old home. We just loved to go there.
Any idea what the square footage would have been of that place?
I have no, but it covered 3 lots, and there are 3 houses where it used to be, on the northwest corner of Boone and Wilson Avenue. There are 3, the family plot when we sold that off. The Baptist, let's see, which church? One of the Lutheran churches bought the ground expecting to put a church on it, and then decided that they wanted more room for parking and so forth after they'd torn the house down. So we were very sorry about that. Let's see, we're getting into my grandmother's family name was Dunham, and she came from New York. She used to tell, when she came out here in 1876, they joined the Congregational Church, and it had a bell in the tower. And she discovered that bell, she was familiar with that foundry that the bell came from, because in the middle of the Hudson River, near Troy, there was a bell foundry out in the river, and as a girl, they skated on the Hudson River in the wintertime. And one of the favorite things they used to do was go look into the bell tower, and they could see the molten metal being poured while they were ice skating around outside. And that was something they really enjoyed. Right below that is a picture of my father's high school football team. Football was a rather unusual sport that was just becoming into the Midwest. This is 1905, And the only man in town who knew anything about football was the Negro janitor at the hotel. And so they got him to come coach the high school football team. And here's a picture of the team with him right in the center in the back row, and my father over on the right-hand side of the middle row. And he was very proud to have been on that football team. And other names that you might remember were Ralph Groves.
Sure.
And, well, David, you wouldn't remember. I guess you come to back think of it, you wouldn't remember those names.
I remember Ralph Groves.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, there was a Bowie.
Or at least the name.
Yeah, and Will Stearns, who lived right across the street, road over Highway 17 over there, built a nice house over there. He was there. Let's see. One other possession of the Dunhams that was particularly interesting to me was 72 Heck Avenue in Ocean Grove. And my grandmother's parents lived in that house, and their three daughters lived in Ocean Grove at one time. And my grandmother used to go out there in the fall and take the children, and my father just fell in love with Ocean Grove. And we were taken there several times growing up. And I have wonderful memories of going to Ocean Grove. I have stopped and talked to the man who lives in 72 Heck Avenue, much to the consternation of my wife. And he thoroughly enjoys my visit and loves telling me about the building. And then I tell him about the ways in which we used to use it when I was a kid. And we came east. And my Uncle George lived in the second floor, and then he allowed us the first and the third floor. And there's a famous family picture of your mother, Anne Royal. Before we were married, we had a party on the roof of the porch, and you could come out from the second floor onto that roof, and we had a party there celebrating her 21st birthday, when she and some other girls from Grinnell College, friends of my sister Mary's, all went along on a family trip to Ocean Grove.
You were courting her at that time?
I surely was. I was indeed. Let's see, where is something else to talk about? The tombstone and the cemetery lot the cross originated on one of the small islands, let's see, St. Martin's Cross on the Isle of Ionia. I looked it up, and it is in the Hebrides group, a very small island, and that's a very unusual marker. It is the only cross marker in the regular cemetery that I can remember. I don't think there's another cross marker of any kind looking like that, so it's easy to find. Oh, here, this is a map of the city of Webster City in 1869 when the railroad came to town. And the McMurray Hatchery, the residence that later became McMurray Hatchery, shows up on this map. It was on Ohio Street.
In the middle of nowhere.
On Ohio Street, pardon?
It seems like in the middle of nowhere.
It is. The settlement was all along Seneca. It was down toward the river, Seneca and Superior Street. And but the railroad really made the town go. My grandfather McMurray started a bank on 2nd Street, on the corner of 2nd Street and Des Moines Street, the northwest corner. And my father went to work for him as a teller in the bank. Dad was also interested in poultry and used to raise chickens in his backyard. And in 1912, the modern incubator was invented, and the incubator made the hatchery business possible because they could hatch a lot of chicks at one time, whereas before they used to just hatch a few hundred in their basement. He started taking orders from chickens from hatcheries in Ohio that were shipped on the trains, came to Webster City, and then for farmers, he would take the orders for farmers. And they were delivered and put in the back of the bank. And his father, the president of the bank, complained about the noise. My father, Murray McMurray, said to him, "Well, Dad, you pay me $2,000 a year in this front teller's cage. I'm making $5,000 a year out the back door with the chickens. No more arguments."
Was your grandfather sent out here to open a bank? Was that the whole problem?
His father, yes, set up a bank. They first in Belmont and then moved to Webster City. And I really don't know if they set it up from scratch or if they bought from somebody else. But that $5 bill that's in the case was issued by that bank. My father loved being out of doors, and after graduating from Grinnell in 1910, he went to the Yale University was just starting a school of forestry. This was something very, very new. And there's a new book out right now called The Great Burn, and it tells about tremendous fires in 3 stories and associates that with the new Yale University School of Forestry, which my father had gone to. He spent 2 years there, got a master's degree in forestry, and was always very proud of that. And when we used to have arguments around, he said, well, I'm the only one in the family here that's got a master's degree. That shut us up. But he loved that, and because of that, he got interested in scouting, Boy Scouting, which came to the United States just a year or two, about 1910 or 11, and he started a troop in 1913, and that became also very famous. He had lots of people, and the main reason it became is because of one of the members of his troop was McKinley Cantor, who later became a prominent author and wrote a movie dedicated to my father about a young man who gets in a scout troop. Walt Disney bought the book, made a movie of it, and the man who played my father's part in the movie was Fred McMurray. I wrote to Fred McMurray one time and said, did he realize that he was playing a part of a man named McMurray also? And of course, I never got an answer. Yeah.
Well, you know, we have a bottle of Fred McMurray wine to drink for dinner today.
Oh, that's right, we do. Let's see, what else do I want to mention? I have lived in my entire life, other than the Army and the college, has been in about 1,000-foot area at the south edge of Webster City, and I think of that sometimes, that I should have been out a little further away. But at the same time, I value very much my having lived with the family traditions here in this small town, been very, very fortunate in my father and brother who brought me back in, educated me to the ways of the business world, and I have enjoyed that very, very much. Don't have another thing to say.